Before I continue this shocking story, let me take you back to the moment that froze everyone in the security office. 15-year-old Jasmine Cole didn't flinch. Her wrists were being cuffed by a white mall cop, the metal biting into her skin. She didn't yell, she didn't beg, she just looked him dead in the eye and said, with a voice calm, like still water, "My dad is just a janitor, but he once wrote code for NASA." Everything went silent. The two teenage boys who had been filming for TikTok lowered their phones. The security supervisor stopped mid-sentence. Even Officer Hodge, the one cuffing her, hesitated, like something in her voice knocked the arrogance right out of him. The air felt heavy, tense, like the next few seconds could tip the entire mall off balance. If you've ever been judged by how you look, not who you are, stay with us, because sometimes the quietest people leave the loudest echoes. It started less than an hour earlier. Jasmine was walking out of a tech store with a small robotics magazine tucked under her arm. She wasn't flashy, just jeans, a hoodie, and a high school badge clipped to her backpack. Next to her walked Madison Weston, same age but dressed in a designer jacket, AirPods in her ears, latte in hand. They'd just wrapped up a STEM workshop held at the mall's learning center, and for once, Jasmine had felt like she belonged, like her voice mattered, like she wasn't just that black girl with the janitor dad. Then it happened. Inside the food court, Brianna shrieked, "My phone! My iPhone's gone!" Panic spread like wildfire. A few tables over, Officer Hodge, a retired cop turned mall security, stepped in like he was still living in a TV cop drama. "Who was the last person near you?" he barked. Brianna's eyes darted, then landed on Jasmine. She shrugged. I don't know. Maybe Jasmine?" Jasmine froze. The boys behind them whispered, "Uh-oh." Here it comes. Cut to the security room, dim lights, 4 cheap chairs, a flat screen with multi-angle camera feeds. Jasmine sat quietly. Her robotics magazine was on the table, unopened. Officer Hodge paced the room, showboating. "You know how this works. One of you took it, and I'm guessing it wasn't Little Miss Pumpkin Latte." He stared Jasmine down. "You want to do this the hard way, or you want to give it back now?" Jasmine blinked. "I didn't take anything." "Wrong answer." Hodge slammed his hand on the desk. "I've been doing this job longer than you've been alive, girl. I know a liar when I see one." Jasmine didn't look away, didn't yell, didn't cry. Instead, she said one line. Just one. "My dad is just a janitor, but he once wrote code for NASA." The silence after that, deafening. Even the second guard, Kyle, mid-30s, beer belly, always smirking, stopped chewing his gum. "Wait." "What?" She nodded, still calm. "You don't have to believe me. You've already decided what kind of girl I am now. Here's what they didn't know. Jeremiah Cole, Jasmine's father, was mopping the marble floor just down the corridor. He wasn't listening, but he had already felt something was wrong, because for all the years he had pushed a mop, wiped glass, and cleaned up after customers who wouldn't even look him in the eye. He never lost that instinct, that mathematical precision, that intuitive read of patterns. Something was off. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat in that security chair like it was a throne. "I didn't steal anything," she said again. Officer Hodge leaned forward, smirking. "You expect me to believe some janitor's daughter is smarter than the mall's golden girl?" Jasmine finally smiled. "Actually, yes." Just then, the intercom buzzed. "Security, floor 2 entrance. Janitor requesting immediate access to CCTV station." Hodge squinted. "A janitor?" Kyle pressed the button. "Tell him we're busy." The voice on the other end paused, then said, "His name is Jeremiah Cole." Hodge's face changed. "Wait, that Jeremiah Cole?" Kyle frowned. "Who?" The supervisor in the back suddenly sat upright. "NASA Cole?" Silence again. Because it turns out, not all janitors are just janitors, and not all kids accused of theft are victims. Sometimes, they're warriors. If this moment stopped you in your tracks, Just wait, because what Jeremiah Cole does next will shake more than just a mall. It will shake a system built to break people like him. Keep watching. This is just the beginning. Jasmine Cole didn't notice the stairs when she first stepped into Technova. To her, it was sacred ground. Shelves lined with sensor kits, LED boards, magnetic wheels, the hum of electricity, faint smell of soldered wires. This place wasn't a store. It was a lab waiting to happen. 15 years old, honor roll student, quiet voice. But when it came to robotics, Jasmine could talk circles around half the college interns she watched on YouTube. Today she'd saved up $56 from tutoring after school, enough to finally buy the photoresistor light sensor she needed for her solar tracking project. She clutched her printed list in one hand, eyes scanning for aisle B6. She didn't see Kyle watching her from the counter, didn't notice how he stiffened slightly when she walked past the motion sensor display, didn't hear him whisper into his walkie, "I got eyes on one, could be a grab-and-go." Backpack, hoodie, low profile, watching. She just walked. Each item she passed, her eyes lit up. She lingered at a 3D printer display, smiled at the open demo board, then moved on. Kyle stepped out from behind the register, casually, almost too casually. "Need help finding something?" She turned, caught off guard. "Oh, yeah, light sensors." For small robotics, Kyle's eyes flicked to her backpack, then back to her face. "What kind of robotics?" She held up her paper. "I'm working on a sunlight tracker. To follow the sun's movement for energy collection." Kyle raised an eyebrow, like she was speaking Martian, but before he could say anything, Brianna Weston floated in through the door. White, ponytail, bouncing, Gucci backpack. She snapped her gum, waved at Kyle like she knew she owned the place. "Hey, is the new iPhone case in yet?" Kyle lit up. "Right there, princess. Display 2. Jasmine stepped aside, suddenly invisible again, until Brianna's voice sliced the air. "Wait, where's my phone?" She patted her jacket, unzipped her bag, looked around dramatically. "Did one of you take it?" Jasmine blinked. "What?" Kyle stepped in like clockwork. "You sure you had it when you came in?" "Yes." Brianna's voice got louder. "I was literally just texting." Her eyes locked onto Jasmine. "You were behind me at the food court earlier, right?" Jasmine looked stunned. I was, but I didn't see anything." Kyle was already reaching for his walkie. "Security to Technova. Possible theft in progress." "No," Jasmine said, voice rising. "No one stole anything." "I was just looking for light sensors." Kyle blocked the exit casually. "Backpack off." Jasmine hesitated, then slowly unzipped her bag, revealing a robotics workbook, her STEM badge, a calculator, and the folded printout of item specs. Kyle barely looked. "Let's take this to the office." "But I didn't." "I said," he cut her off, voice hard now. "Let's go." Other customers had started turning. Someone whispered, "What's going on?" She took a phone. Another guest, a teenage boy, lifted his camera. "Yo, this going viral." And just like that, Jasmine became a spectacle. As Kyle lightly took her arm, escorting her toward the security wing, she looked around. No one stepped in. No one asked questions. Only the eyes, cold, curious, or worse, amused, as if this was entertainment. She passed a woman holding a toddler. The woman pulled her child closer, like Jasmine was contagious. Another customer, a man in a suit, shook his head, muttering, "Typical," and Jasmine felt something sharp twist in her chest. Not fear, not shame. Something worse. Familiarity. She'd seen that look before. The one her dad got every time he pushed his mop into an elevator full of executives. Like his presence was a stain, a glitch in the system. She was halfway to the security office when Brianna called after them. "Check her jacket too." I think she hid something. Jasmine turned around, finally finding her voice. "I didn't take anything." Kyle didn't even flinch. "Then you got nothing to worry about." They reached the steel door. Jasmine hesitated. I just came here for a light sensor. Her voice cracked, soft but clear. Just wanted to build something. Kyle opened the door. Then you can build a case for yourself. Inside, the room buzzed with surveillance feeds, and somewhere down the hall, Jeremiah Cole paused with his mop, sensing a shift in the air. The steel door clicked shut behind her. The room was cold, uninviting, bare except for a table, 2 plastic chairs, and a buzzing security camera in the corner. Jasmine sat down slowly, her hands still clutching her backpack straps. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but restraint. I didn't steal anything. You can check the footage. I was only in aisle B6. Kyle stood near the door, arms crossed. He didn't respond. Seconds later, the door opened again. In walked Officer Hodge, white, mid-40s, military buzz cut, thick belt jangling with keys and ego. The badge on his chest caught the overhead light. He didn't greet her, didn't ask her name, didn't even sit, just stared. So, what's the story here? Kyle gestured lazily. Customer claims her phone disappeared right after this one walked in. Hodge turned to Jasmine. Backpack. On the table, she placed it down gently. Still zipped, still neat. He opened it without asking, pulled out her workbook, flipped through the pages, robotic sketches, code written in pencil, hand-labeled diagrams. He scoffed. You draw all this? Yes, sir, she said. He grunted. Real original. Bet you copied it off YouTube. Jasmine swallowed. No, sir. I'm in STEM, advanced at Lincoln High. My teacher's Mr. Holloway. He can verify. Yeah. Hodge cut her off. Your mom the principal too? No, she said quietly. She passed away when I was 6. He didn't blink. Then your dad? Let me guess. Brain surgeon? Law professor? Jasmine hesitated, then said it, slowly. My dad is a janitor. Kyle let out a short laugh, but Jasmine didn't stop. He used to work at NASA, wrote the early-stage control algorithm for thermal guidance systems. Before he left, Hodge raised his eyebrows. A janitor wrote code for rockets. Yes, that one word, spoken with a quiet certainty. It bounced off the walls like a challenge. Then Hodge smiled, not kindly. You know what your problem is? He said, leaning in. Kids like you think just because you read a few books, answer a few questions right in school, you get to rewrite who you are. I'm not trying to rewrite anything. No? Then why the performance? He opened a drawer, took out a pair of silver handcuffs. Jasmine's breath caught. I told you, I didn't take anything. Hodge stepped behind her. Then you got nothing to worry about. Before she could react, the cold steel clamped around her wrists. Hard, too hard. She winced. That's too tight. He didn't loosen them. Kyle watched silently, arms still crossed, no emotion on his face. Hodge pulled her up by the elbow. You ever been booked before, Jasmine? She shook her head, eyes wide. Well, today's your lucky day. She looked down at her wrists. The cuff had cut skin. A thin line of blood was starting to form along the edge. She breathed in, not crying, not yet. Sir, she said softly. You're hurting me. You'll live. She looked up at the camera in the corner, still blinking red, still recording. I don't want a lawyer, she said clearly. I just want my teacher to come. He knows me. Sure, Hodge said sarcastically. Let's call the White House while we're at it. Maybe your dad's running for president. No, she said again, still calm. He's probably waxing the floor on level 2 right now. Kyle snorted. Hodge leaned on the table. You're telling me this NASA genius mops bathrooms now? Yes. Why? She met his gaze. Because he believes in clean starts. For the first time, Hodge's expression faltered, just a flicker. Then he laughed. Ain't that sweet? You kids and your metaphors. He reached for his walkie. Booking her now. Minor. Possible theft. Resisting Jasmine turned her wrists slightly, revealing the blood now dripping past her thumb. Kyle looked away, but Hodge didn't. "You think that gets you sympathy?" "No," she said calmly. "It gets me truth on camera." He stiffened. "You recording threats now?" "I'm stating facts." "You didn't ask for footage. You didn't check my things thoroughly. You just assumed he sneered." "Konita mauti lam giko jaujuch." Black kids don't come preloaded with ethics. The words stung the air like acid. Jasmine flinched, but didn't break. Instead, she looked him straight in the eyes. "My father taught me that silence isn't surrender, it's restraint." Hodge scoffed again. "Well, your father's got a lot of nerve sending you out here with fairy tales." "He didn't send me," Jasmine said. "He raised me." "That's different." The room went still. The camera kept blinking. Outside the door, faint footsteps echoed down the hall. Heavy, purposeful. Almost like a quiet storm was about to arrive. It began with a ripple in the ordinary. The automatic doors at Technova Mall parted with a low hiss, letting in the afternoon sun and a man with a mop. Jeremiah Cole stepped through, orange janitor overalls, navy blue shirt beneath, sleeves rolled up, thick work boots, calloused hands gripping a worn mop handle like it was an extension of him. His stride was slow, unhurried, silent, but somehow it was the kind of silence that made people turn, the kind that silenced even the squeak of sneakers on tile. He walked past the information kiosk, past the coffee shop, past the blinking arcade and the children's play area, past employees who, for reasons they couldn't explain, straightened their posture as he passed. One guard by the escalator stepped forward, hand half raised. "Sir, this area's closed unless you're—" Jeremiah didn't stop walking. He simply nodded once. The guard froze. It wasn't threat. It wasn't arrogance. It was weight. Somewhere, between dignity and defiance. He reached the center corridor, the place where they'd led Jasmine away. He looked up at the security office, and for the briefest moment, sunlight passed through the mall's skylight and struck the mop handle in his hand. A small halo of light shimmered off its silver clamp, like the world paused to mark his arrival. He didn't carry a briefcase, no badge, no clipboard, just presence. Inside the office, Kyle glanced at the monitors and blinked. There's some guy in a janitor outfit heading here." Hodge didn't look up. "Probably forgot his bucket." "He's not carrying one." Kyle leaned closer. "He's just walking." Jasmine, still seated, turned her head slightly. The blood on her wrist had dried into a thin line. Her eyes narrowed. She knew that stride. She knew the way the world moved just a little differently around it. Then, 3 knocks, measured, not loud, but they echoed. Hodge opened the door and faced a man who did not flinch. Jeremiah Cole stood tall, mop in hand, eyes calm but unyielding. He didn't smile, didn't scowl, didn't demand. He simply said, "I'm Jeremiah Cole." A pause. "I'm here to take my daughter home." Hodge blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said," Jeremiah repeated, his voice like slow thunder, "I'm here for Jasmine." Hodge folded his arms. "We're in the middle of a police investigation." "I'm aware," Jeremiah replied, "which is why I'm asking to speak to my daughter directly." Right now behind him, a few mall employees had gathered. Some recognized him. The quiet man who swept the 3rd floor every evening. The one who brought books in his back pocket and picked up trash, even when no one was looking. But they had never seen him like this. Jeremiah took a slow step forward, and something shifted in the air. Not violence, not even resistance, just gravity. Even Kyle straightened unconsciously. Hodge tried to hold ground. "She's in custody." Jeremiah looked past him and saw her. She was sitting still, but her eyes were wide now, like someone exhaling after holding their breath too long. He turned back to Hodge. "May I?" Another pause, then Hodge opened the door wider. Jeremiah stepped in. Jasmine rose from the chair without a word. He looked at the cuffs, looked at her wrists, didn't say a thing. He simply reached into his back pocket. Not a weapon, not a wallet, a folded napkin. He opened it, wiped the dried blood gently. Jasmine's lip trembled, but she didn't cry. Behind them, Kyle finally found his voice. "Sir, she's still under suspicion." Jeremiah turned to him. "There is a camera above the B6 aisle. You'll find no theft." Then he looked to Hodge. "And if you'd like a list of everyone she's ever studied under, I can provide that. Mr. Holloway at Lincoln High, Professor Dung from the robotics program at the community college, or you could just read her science fair. Records she's placed statewide since she was 9. Jasmine blinked. He remembered all of it. Hodge opened his mouth. Jeremiah raised a hand, not in protest, but in pause. "I don't need your apology," he said. "I just need you to unlock my daughter." The cuffs came off. Jasmine rubbed her wrists. Jeremiah didn't touch her. He simply nodded toward the door. She followed. As they stepped into the hallway, the small crowd that had gathered parted, not because he pushed through, but because they couldn't help it. People moved out of the way of storms, even silent ones. Jeremiah didn't sit. He didn't ask. He simply stepped to the center of the room and reached into the side pocket of his overalls. He placed a small folder on the table, then stepped back. No speech, no emotion, just facts. Hodge raised an eyebrow. Kyle leaned forward. The top page was an online purchase confirmation, time-stamped that morning. It showed an order for a replacement ambient light sensor, paid in full. Underneath it, an email from Jasmine's science teacher, detailing the exact model she needed for her science project. Included was a note praising her independent research and stating she'd be presenting at the regional fair in 2 weeks. And below that, a photo. Jasmine, age 9, smiling wide, holding a certificate of merit in one hand, a bundle of wires, and a blinking LED cube in the other. Jeremiah didn't say, "Here's the proof." He didn't need to. He turned to Jasmine and, again from his back pocket, pulled out something small, folded, soft, a silver handkerchief. It was old, creases permanent, edges slightly frayed, clean but clearly worn by time. He didn't ask. He simply reached out, gently took her wrist, and wiped the crusted blood away, slowly, carefully, like the moment was too sacred to rush. The room was silent, not tense, not awkward, just still, like the building itself was holding its breath. Kyle blinked twice, suddenly unsure of where to look. The security guard outside shifted awkwardly on his feet. Even Brianna, who'd stayed near the back, arms crossed like a wall, couldn't stop her eyes from lowering. Jeremiah folded the handkerchief again, placed it neatly in his pocket, and stood beside his daughter, still without speaking. It was the quiet that unnerved them now, because it wasn't passive. It was the kind of silence that made people hear their own thoughts too loudly. Hodge looked down at the documents again, then at Jasmine, then at Jeremiah. I'll need to verify this," he muttered. Jeremiah gave the smallest nod, and that's when it happened. A sharp buzzing sound cut through the stillness. Everyone turned. The noise was coming from the far right corner, Brianna's tote bag. Her eyes widened. The buzz came again. A phone. Brianna reached in hesitantly and pulled out her iPhone, the same one she'd claimed was stolen. It was still on silent, but the screen lit up clearly with her name, her wallpaper, her notifications. A breath caught in Kyle's throat. Even Hodge leaned forward. "You said your phone was missing," he said slowly. Brianna froze, then her mouth opened, closed, and opened again. I thought, maybe someone returned it, maybe." But the lie unraveled faster than she could stitch it. Jasmine's eyes didn't gloat. She didn't smirk or raise her voice. She just stood a little taller, not because someone else had been exposed, but because, for the first time today, her truth had been seen. Jeremiah didn't look at Brianna, didn't demand an apology. He simply stepped forward, took the folder from the table, and turned to Jasmine. "Ready?" he asked quietly. She nodded, and together they walked toward the door. As they passed the others, no one spoke, but no one looked away either. They saw the bandaged wrist, they saw the folded handkerchief, they saw the man with a mop and a spine of steel. And for the first time that day, they saw Jasmine, not as a suspect, but as someone who had survived their silence. The elevator doors opened. Father and daughter stepped in. As they closed, Kyle's voice broke the quiet. "Mr. Cole." I didn't know. Jeremiah turned, and for the first time, he spoke more than a sentence. "You didn't ask." The doors closed, and with it, Act 1 ended, not with a shout, but with the kind of silence that could shake walls. The next morning, the sky was clear, but the air felt heavier, the kind of heaviness you couldn't name, but carried anyway. Jeremiah poured himself a cup of coffee, careful not to wake Jasmine. She hadn't slept until after 3 a.m., eyes still wide open long after they got home. The news hit by 7:12, a text from Jasmine's science teacher. "I'm so sorry." The principal just forwarded this. Attached was a short email from the school board. "Jasmine Cole is hereby placed on temporary academic suspension, pending investigation into an incident involving theft and campus conduct violations. This decision is administrative and does not presume guilt. She will not be eligible for scholarship nominations during this period." Jeremiah's hand clenched the phone until his knuckles turned pale. By 8:45, the rumor had already made it to the cafeteria. By 10:02, it was on a local blog. Teen girl questioned in mall theft, daughter of local janitor. And by noon, a small TV station was airing a segment featuring Brianna outside her house. She wore a pale pink cardigan and the expression of someone carefully performing fear. "I'm not saying it was her," she told the camera, eyes wide and voice low. "I mean, I just don't know who else it could have been. She was acting kind of strange." The video panned out just as she dabbed her eyes with a tissue. No one asked why she had her phone the whole time. No one questioned why there'd been no formal charges, and no one cared. The story was simple. Black girl, janitors, kid, mall incident. It practically wrote itself. At 12:37 p.m., Jeremiah's phone rang. The number was hidden. He hesitated, then picked up. "Mr. Cole," said a deep, measured voice on the other end. "We know you're upset. We all are, but you need to understand how things work." Jeremiah didn't answer. The voice continued. "You're not doing your daughter any favors by pushing back." This could have been quiet, but now, her name's out there, the school's involved, press too. There was a pause, then, "Take her out of the fair, withdraw the project, keep your head down. And maybe this blows over." Jeremiah's jaw tightened. "And if I don't?" The voice didn't flinch. "Well, be a shame if someone started digging. Looking at your employment record, your past, who knows what might turn up." A beat. "And she's just a little girl. Be awful if she lost her shot at any future scholarships. Colleges don't like controversy." Click. The line went dead. Jeremiah stood still for a long time, then slowly walked to Jasmine's room. The door was half closed. Inside, his daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, a small desk lamp glowing beside her. She was scribbling on a notepad, wires and circuit boards scattered around her. The laptop screen was open to a document titled "Light Sensitivity Across Materials, Regional Science Fair Submission Draft 3. Her hands moved fast, typing data, adjusting lines of code. Her face calm, focused, not unaffected, but determined. She had headphones in, but not for music. She was listening to a podcast on materials engineering. She hadn't stopped, not after being handcuffed, not after being lied about, not after being publicly shamed. Jeremiah watched her for a moment, then sat on the edge of her bed. "You okay?" he asked softly. Jasmine didn't look up. "No," she said. A pause. But I'm still working. Jeremiah didn't press further. He simply nodded, then stood, walked back to the kitchen, and stared out the window. The mop still leaned against the back wall, next to his boots. He'd carried both through storms, but today something heavier weighed on his chest. Not anger, not yet. It was something else. The knowledge that this wasn't just about a phone. It never had been. This was about reminding people like them of where they belonged, of what doors they shouldn't enter, what rooms they weren't meant to stand in. But Jasmine wasn't backing down, so neither would he. That night, he opened an old box from the closet. Inside were papers, most yellowed, some still crisp, NASA forms, old schematics, conference name tags, a photo of him, young, clean-shaven, wearing a suit and a badge. He flipped it over, written in faded pen. To Jasmine, when you're ready. He hadn't meant to show her yet, but maybe the world didn't care about ready. Maybe the world needed reminders, not of where you came from, but of who you are. By Tuesday morning, the story had already started to fade. The media moved on. The school said nothing further. The store issued a vague statement about miscommunication. It was working, the silence, the forgetting, until someone else remembered. In a small apartment in Maryland, Dr. Solomon Grant, a retired astrophysicist and former director of propulsion systems at NASA, was watching the news. He hadn't recognized the girl, but the man in the background, standing quietly beside her, he did. Grant reached for his phone, then, after a moment, opened his laptop instead. He went live. The title of the stream was simple: The Man Who Said No. It started small, a few dozen viewers, mostly other retired engineers. Curious names in the chat. Then his voice came through. "Jeremiah Cole," he said, eyes locked on the camera. "You don't know that name, but I do. So does every man and woman who ever worked in orbital design between 1998 and 2010. The comments blinked to life. Grant continued. "He was the one who wrote the dynamic energy algorithm for Kepler-3, the one that let us reroute solar drift in real time." He held up an old folder. The algorithm wasn't just brilliant. It was impossible. We had teams of specialists fail. He walked in, mid-30s, wearing a second-hand suit, barely said a word, and solved it in 4 days. He leaned forward, and then, in 2011, he was gone. The stream paused for a moment as Grant collected his breath. They told us he left. Moved on, but that's not true. He clicked to share his screen. On it, a redacted internal report. A private energy firm partnered with the agency. They needed someone to sign off on a satellite mining operation. The math worked, but the environmental impact didn't. He exhaled. Jeremiah refused to sign. His voice lowered. They offered him money. They offered him promotion. Then they gave him a choice: sign or leave. Grant looked down, and he left. The stream cut to black, but not before one line scrolled across the screen. Sometimes the janitor used to fly the ship. Within minutes, the video spread. An silent genius started trending on science forums, then Reddit, then Twitter. Old colleagues posted photos. Young engineers reshared quotes. Tech activists built timelines. By Wednesday, a group of MIT students had launched a Discord channel called "If He's a Janitor, I Want Him as My Mentor." One comment read, "I just watched this man get mocked on national television. If this is how we treat people who stand up for what's right, no wonder we keep repeating the same mistakes." Another, "My professor just showed us Jeremiah's algorithm from 2009. We still teach it." At Jasmine's school, the science faculty began whispering. One teacher walked into the principal's office and dropped a copy of the Kepler report on the desk. "You might want to consider the scholarship ban." Even the local news looped back, a new anchor, a softer tone. Turns out the father of the accused teen was once a lead engineer at NASA, and his resignation? Linked to a whistleblower situation involving environmental ethics, Jeremiah didn't say a word. He just went to work. Same uniform, same mop, same quiet dignity, but now the looks were different, not from everyone, but from enough people. People who paused, who stepped aside, who nodded, if only slightly. Jasmine noticed first. Kids in the hallway stopped whispering when she walked past. One student, someone who hadn't looked her in the eye all semester, muttered, "Hey, you okay?" She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. But that night, she sat next to her father while he repaired a broken kettle, and for the first time in days, she smiled. "You didn't even flinch," she said, quietly. Jeremiah kept fixing the kettle. "Sometimes," he answered, "silence isn't surrender." Cynthia Marsh sat at her kitchen table, staring at the laptop screen. She had watched every second of the clip, the security footage, the handcuffs, Jeremiah's silence, the shame in Jasmine's eyes. And suddenly, she wasn't just a teacher. She was a witness. Cynthia had known Jasmine since 8th grade. She'd watched her build light sensors from scratch, write code that won regional contests, explain physics with the calmness of a graduate student. But the world didn't see that. The world only saw skin. She clicked record. "My name is Cynthia Marsh," she said. "I teach STEM at Kingsley High School, and I need to tell you something." Her voice didn't waver, but her hand trembled slightly. 3 years ago, Jasmine Cole submitted a research paper on quantum dot solar cells. It was brilliant, sharp, original. It won the National Youth Science Challenge. She paused. And then, the judges asked to verify the work. They said it was standard procedure, but I'd been in this field long enough to know. Her eyes narrowed. They didn't believe a black teenager could have written it. She looked directly into the camera. I sat beside her during every phase of that project. She built the models herself, ran the tests, coded the simulations. I watched her give up her weekends and stay after school while others went to prom. Cynthia exhaled. They called it a random audit. I called it what it was. She clicked upload. The video spread faster than she expected. And then something extraordinary happened. Students began commenting, then forwarding documents. One by one, screenshots of Jasmine's project timeline appeared online. Group photos from science fairs, peer reviews from classmates, testimonies from former mentors, even a blurry video of Jasmine explaining photoelectric conversion at the district finals, posted by an old classmate who hadn't spoken to her in years. One user wrote, "She tutored me for free after school, taught me how to build circuits. She deserves better." Another posted a copy of her state finalist presentation titled, "Light Doesn't Judge. People Do." Within a day, a group of students, Black, White, Latino, Asian, formed an online coalition called #StudentsForJasmine. They issued a public letter. "We demand a retraction from the media, a retraction from the school, and an apology to Jasmine Cole, who inspired many of us to believe we could be scientists too." They attached a Google Drive folder titled Proof of Excellence. By evening, Jasmine's old science project was trending on multiple platforms. One tech blog wrote, "The same girl being mocked on local TV once built a solar-powered microgrid model in her garage. The receipts are here, but Jasmine hadn't seen any of it. She was in her room, hunched over her desk, trying to fix the syntax in a new physics simulation. She hadn't spoken to anyone all day. The walls of the internet hadn't reached her yet, until Jeremiah knocked gently. He didn't say anything, just slid the tablet across the desk. She looked down. 1,000 retweets, 2,000 shares. Her face, her voice, a caption, "This is the Jasmine Cole I know." She blinked, then clicked play. Cynthia's voice filled the room. "I stand with her," she was saying, "and if telling the truth costs me my job, then so be it." Jasmine's mouth fell slightly open. Then came the comments. So many names she recognized. Kids from robotics club, students from other schools, some she'd only met once, now posting with the hashtag, #let her be brilliant. For a moment she couldn't speak. Then she whispered, "They remembered." Jeremiah gave a small nod. Outside the window, a breeze rustled the curtain, and for the first time in days, Jasmine's shoulders relaxed. The world had seen her in handcuffs. Now it was starting to see her brilliance. Brad Reynolds stood by the back entrance of Technova, fidgeting with something in his jacket pocket. The parking lot was mostly empty. Sunlight glanced off windshields. For a moment, he almost turned around. Then he saw the orange jumpsuit. Jeremiah Cole wasn't walking fast. He wasn't looking around. Just cleaning, methodical, quiet, calm. Brad stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Mr. Cole?" Jeremiah didn't flinch. He simply stopped and looked up. His eyes were steady, unreadable. Brad's voice wavered. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I was there, that day." Jeremiah said nothing, just waited. Brad pulled out a small USB drive, wrapped in a napkin. "I saved this." Even after they told me to delete everything, Jeremiah's brow furrowed slightly. Brad swallowed hard. "I know I should have spoken sooner. But I was new. I needed the job. They said if I made noise, I'd be out by morning." He looked away for a second, then back at Jeremiah. "But watching them cuff your daughter, watching you stand there while they humiliated her, and you didn't say a word, that haunted me more than anything." He pressed the USB into Jeremiah's hand. "I couldn't keep pretending." That evening, in the dim light of the modest apartment, Jeremiah inserted the USB into his old laptop. The files were unlabeled, just timestamps. He clicked the first. It showed the accessories aisle at Technova. Jasmine stood calmly by a rack of light sensors, inspecting specs, jotting notes on her phone. Brianna entered frame, talking loudly on her phone, tossing items into her bag. Then came the moment. Brianna looked left, looked right, then slipped her phone into her jacket pocket. No one bumped her. No one distracted her. She wasn't looking for anyone to blame. She just kept walking. Jeremiah's hand tightened slightly on the mouse. Next file. Security room footage. Grainy. But audio was clear. Kyle's voice. "Keep your eyes on the ones who look like they can't afford the stuff. Baggy clothes, backpacks, especially the brown kids." A manager's voice replied, "That's profiling, man." Kyle laughed. "Call it what you want. It keeps us clean." Click. Another clip. Brad's own face in the corner, looking uncomfortable. His voice hesitant. "But what if we're wrong?" Kyle again. "Then they'll scream racism and we'll apologize. But if we're right, we save the company a lawsuit." Click. Jeremiah sat back, his eyes closed. Proof, not just of Jasmine's innocence, but of a culture. The next morning, Jeremiah didn't go to the police. He went to Cynthia Marsh. She watched the clips in silence. Her hands trembled as she closed the laptop. This changes everything," she whispered. He nodded once. "We bring it forward," she said. "No," Jeremiah replied calmly. "We bring it forward at the right time." She looked at him, confused, but Jeremiah was already walking out. He knew how systems worked. You didn't yell into them. You waited for the echo, then you delivered the blow. Later that day, Cynthia uploaded a public statement. "This is not just about Jasmine Cole. It's about every student who was watched instead of welcomed. Every employee told to keep their head down. Every injustice that was called a misunderstanding." Attached was a short teaser. Coming tomorrow, the footage they tried to erase. It spread like fire. Comments poured in. Why would a janitor have the real evidence? Because he was the only one who didn't need the system to validate him. The next day, the full video dropped. 2.5 minutes of damning truth. Brianna's lie, caught in the act. Kyle's words, raw and unapologetic. Brad's quiet voice at the end. I kept a copy, because deep down, I knew one day someone brave would come looking for it. And that someone had. Jeremiah never said a word in the video, but his presence, his silence, spoke louder than any mic drop. For the first time in weeks, Jasmine smiled, not because they were winning, but because the truth had finally found light. At first, it was just comments. Then, it became a wave. Under the viral video exposing the footage from Technova, people started replying not with opinions, but with stories, painfully familiar ones. A woman named Maria Velasquez posted a photo of her 14-year-old son holding a violin case. Her caption read, "Last year, Brianna accused my son of stealing her wallet. He was in Technova buying strings. They never found the wallet, but they banned him anyway." Another post from a quiet account with an Asian name. 2 years ago, I worked retail inside that mall to save for college. Kyle said I stole AirPods. They never even checked the stock room. I lost my scholarship because of it. The stories kept coming. Different faces, different years, same patterns. Jasmine wasn't the first. She was just the first who had a father that didn't flinch. In the following days, a group of young activists began compiling a public Google Doc titled, "We Weren't Silent, a timeline of accusation without evidence." Within 48 hours, it had 27 entries, all of them linked to incidents involving either Brianna, Kyle, or both. Screenshots, security footage, school notices, news clippings. Most had never made it past whispers, until now. A black father in Michigan wrote, "My niece cried for 2 months after being accused of hiding merchandise in her wheelchair bag." Turns out, Kyle was working overtime that weekend. An elderly Asian man uploaded a YouTube short from 2019, clearly showing a young version of Kyle forcibly grabbing a teen's backpack while saying, "Looks like the kind of bag stuff disappears into." In every case, the common thread was chilling. The targets were always young, always people of color, always unaccompanied, and always unheard, until the janitor refused to stay quiet. Civil rights attorney Marla Jefferson saw the footage. Then she saw the spreadsheet. Within a day, she launched a formal initiative. Her firm released a statement. "This is no longer a matter of individual misconduct. This is systemic discrimination enabled by policy gaps, racial bias, and negligent oversight. We are preparing a class action lawsuit on behalf of all victims wrongfully profiled, accused, or punished by Technova or their affiliates over the last 5 years." That night, Jeremiah received an email. Short, respectful. "Mr. Koki, Cole, we'd be honored to speak with you, not only as a parent, but as a moral force behind this truth. The lawsuit needs a voice, and you, sir, have already become one." Jeremiah didn't respond right away. Instead, he walked out to the porch. Jasmine sat on the steps, her science notebook open but untouched. She looked up at him. "You think this is going to change anything?" He sat beside her. "In a system built on silence," he said quietly, "one voice can be a fault line." She closed her book. "Then what's yours?" Jeremiah looked at his hands, the calluses, the still faint pink line where the mop handle had splintered once. He didn't answer, but the next morning, a press conference was held on the courthouse lawn, and Jeremiah Cole stood at the center, still in his orange janitor uniform, still silent at first. But beside him stood Marla Jefferson, Cynthia Marsh, and 3 of the former victims who had come forward. He stepped to the mic and said, "I'm not here because I'm angry. I'm here because my daughter walked through a door that too many others were forced to walk out of in shame. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politician. I just clean floors. But if a janitor has to be the one to clean up what this system did to our children, then so be it." The crowd was silent. Then the clapping began, slow at first, then swelling. Jasmine stood in the front row, hands clasped, eyes wet. For the first time, someone was putting the pattern into words. Not just a bad store manager, not just one rude employee, but a mechanism, a chain of assumptions, a structure designed to fail certain kids before they ever had a chance to prove themselves. Technova declined to comment, but online the tide had turned. The comment sections, once full of doubt, now brimmed with solidarity. "My cousin went through this. I used to shop with my hoodie down just so they'd leave me alone." "We see you, Jeremiah. We see all of you," The final hashtag that trended that week wasn't about Jasmine. It wasn't even about Brianna. It simply read, #It was never just one phone. And the world finally understood. This story wasn't about a theft. It was about everything that gets taken without anyone noticing, until someone says, enough. The red paint was still wet. It dripped from the garage door like blood, each letter jagged and rushed. Get out. The word out was smeared, as if the person ran out of time, or courage. Jeremiah stood in the driveway, mop in one hand, looking at the message. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. Inside the house, Jasmine sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, fingernails chewed to the quick. She hadn't eaten. The news had stopped running stories, but the people hadn't stopped whispering. At school, at the library, even at church. Once, someone left a used tissue in her locker with a note, "Wipe your lies with this." She tried to laugh it off, until it kept happening, and then it wasn't funny anymore. That night, Jeremiah cooked her favorite dinner, mac and cheese with smoked paprika and crushed Ritz crackers on top. She didn't come to the table. He brought a bowl to the couch anyway. Jasmine didn't look at him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I thought I could ignore it. I thought if I just stayed good, kept studying, kept being quiet. Her voice cracked. They'd stop. Jeremiah sat beside her, didn't push, didn't interrupt. Jasmine looked down at her fingers, blood along the palm, edges a nervous habit that had turned violent. She whispered, "Maybe I'm not as strong as you think I am." Jeremiah blinked slowly, reached down to the coffee table, opened a drawer. He pulled out a small black notebook, edges worn, the elastic band faded. He handed it to her. "Do you remember this?" Jasmine turned it over in her hands. Her eyes widened. "Mum's," Jeremiah nodded. "She started it when she was in grad school. Every time she ran into a problem no one else could solve, she'd write until she found the answer." Jasmine opened to a random page, equations, notes, a smudge of lipstick. She smiled, barely. Jeremiah said softly, "Your mother once told me something. I never forgot it. She said, patience isn't just waiting. It's walking through disrespect without letting it tear your soul." Jasmine's eyes filled, her lips trembled. "What if I'm already torn?" Jeremiah placed his hand over hers, gently, firmly. "Then we don't patch it with silence. We stitch it with truth." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she leaned into him. Let the warmth of his arm, the scratch of his janitor's shirt, be a shield for just one moment. Outside, the paint dripped slower. Jeremiah would wash it later. But for now, this moment of holding on was the real cleaning, not of walls, but of wounds. Cameras rolled. The courthouse steps overflowed with signs, chants, and silence. No screaming, just steady voices, handmade boards reading, "Justice for Jasmine, janitors deserve dignity. If justice is blind, we see for her." Inside, the chamber was packed. Brad Reynolds took the stand first. His voice shook. "I was told to target anyone who looked like they didn't belong. And I did it. I watched a girl get accused, knowing the truth. I've been ashamed ever since next came Miss." Marsh straight back, clear eyes. "I've taught for 23 years. I've seen brilliance in every color. When Jasmine won the national award, the board questioned its authenticity. She didn't cry. She rewrote the entire thesis, again, just to prove it." The footage from the USB was played. Room silent. Brianna stuffing her own phone into her coat pocket. Kyle whispering to another employee, glancing toward the black kids. Then Dr. Solomon Grant from NASA's ethics board stood. Jeremiah Cole didn't lose his job because he failed. He lost it because he refused to betray a rainforest for profit. If that's weakness, then I pray for a world full of weak men. Murmurs rippled. At the prosecution table, Brianna sat pale, head lowered. Behind her, Officer Hodge was expressionless, but beads of sweat ran along his collar. The judge called Jasmine to the stand. She walked slowly, hands folded, chin level. The prosecutor leaned forward. Jasmine, tell us how it felt when you were handcuffed. In the middle of a public shopping mall, Jasmine didn't flinch. It felt like someone tried to erase me. The room stilled. She continued, I've spent my whole life learning how to build circuits, systems, code. But in that moment, someone decided I didn't belong. Not because of proof, but because of skin. I felt like I had been robbed of my worth, even though I never lost it. Jeremiah looked on. No tears, just breath held. The judge nodded, then delivered her words. Given the overwhelming evidence, the court recommends a full public apology from Technova Mall. Officer Hodge is hereby placed under formal investigation and suspended pending review. Gasps. Brianna Weston is referred to the District Attorney for criminal investigation under false accusation and defamation of a minor. Outside, cheers erupted. Jasmine stepped down, walked to her father. They didn't hug, they just stood side by side. Quiet, strong, seen. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the screen flickered to life. A still frame, then motion. Jasmine standing near the counter. Brianna slipping the phone into her coat while glancing around. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Jasmine sat still, her hands clasped. The footage kept rolling. Officer Hodge walking in, brushing past the real suspect, eyes locked only on one person. Her. The lights came back on. The silence was deep. The judge turned to Jasmine. You may speak. Jasmine stood. Slowly, she looked straight ahead. I've answered 1,000 questions in science fairs, math bowls, debate championships, but none of them ever asked the question that matters most. She paused. Who gets to decide who looks suspicious? A hush. Is it skin tone? Is it income? Is it the fact my father wears an orange janitor uniform instead of a white coat? She turned slightly toward the jury. I want to live in a world where people don't look at my dad's uniform to decide how valuable I am, where the sound of silence doesn't mean shame, but strength. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the folded cloth Jeremiah had used on her wrists. This is the same rag my dad uses to clean floors. Last week, he used it to wipe the blood from my skin, and even then, he did it with dignity murmurs. People say I'm brave. I'm not. I was scared, but I knew, if I stayed silent, someone else's daughter would be next. From the back rows, a rustle. Dozens of students. Different backgrounds, different faces, rose in unison. They held handmade signs. We are all Jasmine. One girl had tears running down her cheeks. Another boy clutched a sign shaped like a circuit board, etched with the word truth. The courtroom was frozen. A reporter typed so fast her fingers trembled. A member of the jury, a woman in a navy business suit, subtly nodded. Brianna, for the first time, began to cry. But no one looked at her. All eyes were on the girl who had stood taller than the courtroom. Jasmine bowed her head slightly, then sat down. No more words needed. Only silence. That spoke louder than anything else. The courtroom had barely recovered from Jasmine's words when the judge turned. Mr. Cole, would you like to address the court? Jeremiah stood. For the first time, he wore the same orange janitor uniform. No jacket, no badge, just a navy blue dress shirt beneath the bib, sleeves rolled up, hands weathered. But when he walked forward, the room shifted, not from sound, from presence. He didn't look at the cameras, he didn't look at the press. He looked only at his daughter, and then turned. I was taught not to speak unless I had something worth saying, he began quietly. For years I let that rule turn into silence. I thought, if I stayed out of the way, the world would be fair to my child. His voice didn't rise, but it carried. I don't need anyone to restore my name. I already know who I am, but I need justice, not for me, for her. He glanced toward Jasmine, whose eyes welled. Because if we don't demand it today, tomorrow's children will keep shrinking, keep apologizing for simply existing. The room was dead still, until a soft click. The screen behind him came to life. A document appeared. U.S. Patent Number, US 2007/02-41839, A1 Navigation Energy Redistribution Algorithm. Inventor, Jeremiah. A. Cole, NASA, 2007. Whispers surged like a wave. Another slide. A launch photo from 2011. A team of engineers. One face circled. Jeremiah, younger. Tie crooked, eyes sharp, smile quiet. Gasps. An older man stood up from the back. Dr. Solomon Grant, former lead scientist at NASA's EXO program. I can confirm that algorithm was used in both the Kepler-3 test flight and the Europa probe draft mission. Mr. Cole was our chief systems engineer. Dozens of heads turned. Jeremiah remained still. "No one invited me here because of that," he said simply. "No one's clapping for janitors at 3 a.m. while they're scrubbing floors behind the lights." He held up the same silver rag. "This? It's not just for cleaning tiles. Last week, I used it to wipe blood off my daughter's wrist. She never raised her voice. She never fought back. And yet, she bled. A collective shiver moved through the court. I won't let that be the last thing she learns from this world." He turned to the judge. "I'm not here to make a speech. I'm here to make sure what happened to her doesn't happen again. To any child, a long beat." The judge said nothing, but one by one people stood. First, a woman in the press gallery, then the student section, then a teacher, then an old man in a wheelchair, clapping once, twice, 3 times. A wave of rising feet, no fanfare, no music, just silent respect for the janitor who had stayed silent too long. And finally, as if pulled by gravity, Jasmine stood too. She didn't say a word, but she reached into her bag and gently placed the silver rag on the bench beside her, where everyone could see it. And everyone did, because this time, no one looked away. The judge returned with the verdict. "All rise." Silence tightened like a drumskin. The court clerk handed over the folder. The judge opened it, adjusted his glasses, and looked toward the defendant's table. Brianna Weston, for knowingly making a false report to authorities, resulting in the wrongful detainment of a minor, you are sentenced to 200 hours of court-supervised community service, including mandatory bias training and volunteer work with underserved youth programs. Brianna froze. Mouth parted. She had come in with a team of attorneys, walked in heels that clicked like she still ran the mall. Now, no makeup could hide the way her hands trembled. "And let the record show," the judge added, "that these hours shall be served publicly, not behind closed doors." Accountability is not shame. It's a mirror. A low ripple moved through the courtroom. The judge turned to the gallery. "Officer Hodge." The man stiffened behind his row of defenders. "For excessive force, abuse of power, and detaining a minor without sufficient evidence, this court refers your case to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Until then, your suspension remains active. Bailiff, please escort him out." Click. The sound of handcuffs made heads turn. This time, they weren't on Jasmine. Hodge's eyes darted around, but no one came to his defense. He was led out through the same side door he had once pushed a child through. The judge wasn't done. "To the management of Technova Mall," he said, "this court recommends reparative action for enabling a pattern of discrimination. As part of the settlement, the mall will fund a new scholarship program under the name of Jasmine Cole for black girls pursuing STEM education." Gasps. Again. Jasmine looked up, stunned. She hadn't known. The judge nodded toward her, then motioned to the side aisle. An older woman stepped forward, silver hair, dark blazer, name tag, Elaine Burke, Chair, State Education Board. She unfolded a paper and read, voice steady. "To Miss Jasmine Cole, on behalf of the Board of Education, I extend our sincerest apologies. We failed to protect your dignity. We failed to question our biases. You reminded us, through grace under pressure, that integrity does not require position. It only requires courage. We see you now, and we are listening." She looked up, tearful. "And to Mr. Jeremiah Cole, we apologize for mistaking your silence for insignificance. It was strength in its purest form." Jeremiah didn't move. He sat in the last row, in uniform, boots dusted, shoulders square. His hand held Jasmine's, not tight, just enough for her to feel steady. Outside the courthouse, the noise had grown. Hundreds of students, teachers, parents, signs that read, "Protect Black Youth," "Janitors are not invisible," and "Justice for Jasmine." Reporters tried to crowd near the steps, but Jeremiah and Jasmine didn't go that way. They exited from the side. No cameras, no statements, just the two of them, walking slowly beneath a gray sky softening into gold. Someone handed them a paper from the courthouse printer, a photo of the courtroom verdict, clipped with Jasmine's name above the fold. Jeremiah folded it gently, slipped it into his back pocket, and they kept walking. Sunlight streamed through the newly installed glass panels of the mall atrium. Where once hung warning signs and rusted cameras, now stood a clean white banner. Jasmine Cole, STEM Center, free access, all ages, all voices. The security room was gone. In its place, shelves of robotics kits, laptops donated by MIT alumni, and 3D printers humming like a second chance. Kids crowded the center, hands stained with ink, eyes wide with questions. And at the entrance, a simple plaque read, "This space exists because one girl refused to stay quiet, and one man chose to clean the world not with noise, but with dignity." Across town, Jasmine stood on a stage. A spotlight hit the curve of her shoulders as she accepted a scholarship certificate embossed with gold. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, honorary entry, class of 2029. Camera flashes, applause, but she didn't smile for them. Her eyes searched the back of the room. There, in the last row, near the exit door, sat a man in a neatly pressed orange janitor uniform. No badge, just calm. Jeremiah gave a slight nod. Nothing more. He didn't need to say, "I'm proud." She'd always known. Later that afternoon, while most of the city moved on, in a quiet corner of the mall, a man stood alone. Orange uniform, rough hands. He folded a silver cleaning cloth, not out of duty, but ritual. The sunlight caught it just right, bouncing light onto the polished tiles. He adjusted one corner of the cloth, then stopped. Behind him, soft footsteps. "Dad?" He turned. Jasmine stood at the edge of the frame. No spotlight now, just soft shadow and breath. "What is it, baby girl?" She stepped closer. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. "I won't let anyone wipe away what I deserve anymore." Jeremiah didn't answer, not with words, just a small smile, deep with time, eyes holding something between pride and peace. He placed the cloth down, not as a janitor finishing his shift, but as a man who had spent years folding away pain, and finally felt the weight lift. They stood together, sunlight pouring through the glass like something holy. And for the first time in a long time, silence didn't mean surrender. It meant legacy. No one was born to endure silence, but when wielded with purpose, silence can become the loudest echo the world will ever hear. Before we say goodbye, we'd love to know, where are you watching from? Is it a quiet morning with a warm cup of coffee? Or a late night where stories like this keep you company? Let us know, in the comments. We read everyone with gratitude. And if this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to the channel. Not just to hear more stories like this, but to be part of a community that still believes in kindness, healing, and second chances. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Wherever you are, we hope you carry this story with you. And remember, sometimes the miracle doesn't knock on your door. It waits quietly until you're ready to open your heart. Take care, and we'll see you in the next story.